I can't breathe. I feel as if I'm being pulled down, as if I'm just feeling negative all the time. I feel as if my feet are stuck in quicksand and I can't move physically, mentally, all around. I just feel as if the weight of the world is on my shoulders. These are the feelings of people with depression, people that can't just be normal or feel normal. This is what they feel. Depression is about feeling overwhelmed by negative thought, and it can become clinical if not treated over time. In this particular video, I'm going to look at depression, but more so, I'm looking at how it can be proactively, solved, and we can utilize ordinary things to help adolescents. I have shared my time over the years in helping adolescents voluntarily and professionally. Once back in 2008, I was actually, fortunate enough to get the opportunity, but also happy enough to just go out and start youth cafes. Yes, youth cafes. These were social places for children and for young people. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. But first, I'm just going to look at a study that's really, really interesting. Now, this study is all about adolescents' positive and negative uses of social media. Now, social media is all around us. It's really impossible to avoid it. We know that. And in this particular study, the young people that were in the study, they started looking at the likes of Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. And these, of course, are really, really popular social networks. And we got really good feedback from this study in order for us all to improve teenage life and to look at young people in general and their mental health as such. Now, the thing about this particular study was that all the people involved were actually diagnosed as being depressed. Even though they were young people, they were depressed. Lots of people I've worked with know and understand this, that young people can get depressed. But lots of people don't realise that yes, young people can get depressed. These are not just young people. These are the people of tomorrow. They're going to make the decisions for you perhaps when you're a little bit older, 5, 10 years down the line. These are the people that will be our future leaders, without a doubt. If you look at a lot of people that are very, very famous right now, some of them actually have depression, or some of them have suffered from depression. Now, in this particular study, there was 23 respondents to the study. Now, that doesn't seem an awful lot. It really doesn't. But there was real thorough feedback going on here. There was a lot of integration going on, obviously, with the researchers and those respondents in the study. So even though there was only 23, there was rich data that we can claim from this particular study in order to read this data and say, hey, this makes sense, let's try and do this and that and so on. In this study, of the 23 adolescents, that is, there was 18 of them that were female, which is it's telling, and I'll tell you about that later on in the video, and it's really important to watch for that. 8 of them then, of course, not 8, the remaining of the 18, which is of course 5, were male. So 18 and 5 males, 18 females. Now, with regard to that, the actual study started looking at why the positives were the positives as well. Now, some of the positives were, 1, they could socially network and connect with people. Now, that's pretty obvious, that's for sure. But how they connect is really interesting as well. It's really intriguing. So how they connected with people was very telling. They noticed that in connecting with people, they could connect, 1, with their friends and 2, with their family. Again, that's not a huge telling factor, but what is telling is that these young people are actually connecting deeper with people of their own age group, their friends and peers, even though they might actually be living next door to them. And we know that. We've had our time as adults in the coronavirus, in COVID-19, and we've seen how it's really telling and important to have technology and social media near us when we need a connection, when we can't get close to our friends. But these digital natives, these younger people, these are doing it really naturally because it's essentially what they've grown up with. So there's positives in that they can connect, and as said, overseas, naturally enough, they can connect with people that are, their families or even friends. So if they've gone on holidays, or if they are visiting people overseas, such as friends, they can reconnect with them through the internet, through the social media, which is a good thing, they said. They also said that fandoms were a particular thing that they loved doing and using social media for. Fandoms, of course, are when young people, or people in general, can look at their own famous bands, or even favourite famous bands, that is. They can look at their own actors or actresses or singers and so on, performers as such, and they can actually leave a comment, leave a, well, I like that about this, or I like the way they dress, or the way they sing that song, or get to that particular moment in the song is just really cool, I really, really like it. So again, they can express their opinions, but they're expressing it in a communal way, where other young people, perhaps from a different country, perhaps people they've never even met before, can actually interact with them as well in a social media type of way. And that is a really, really cool thing. And this is something that their age group have been able to do and have grown up with. So they kind of see it as being normal as such. Now, I mentioned earlier on that I actually had the happiness within myself, and also the voluntary aspect, but also the professional etiquette, to bring those skills to bear once the recession hit in 2008. And what I did was I opened up youth cafes. There was very few of them around at the time, and I was really fortunate enough to have a lot of experience in that realm. So what I did was I brought young people to youth cafes, and I gave them ownership of this youth cafe. I gave them the place to mosey on down in the place, to look around and to design in as many ways as possible, and give them that responsibility that they could just grasp and just go forward with and be able to, well, help other young people as well. It was such a positive place and an environment as well. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Now the negatives, and again I experienced these negatives as well, not just in the youth cafe, but also in my own personal life, in my own business life and so on. And I'll tell you about that a little bit later on in the video as well, more to see for sure. The negatives are essentially that, well, even though there's these fandoms and they can connect online and such, the thing about it is there can be, well, you've heard it before, but unfortunately it's very true, there can be a lot of hate speech online. Now, Ask FM is a site that they mentioned, was a particular site that they weren't very happy with when they put down particular comments. And then there's other things such as, well, a young person or any person can put things down and can post things, but they can be overshared. So even if they just wanted to post things privately, perhaps, say for example, on Facebook, within their own friends type of system, this might have been shared outside and into another friend system. And this was not what they particularly wanted or envisaged. So it wasn't ideal for their particular post. Now, many people want a lot of shares, but not for these particular people. So this was interesting feedback from them as well. Then I mentioned Facebook and I mentioned hate speech, and I'm not necessarily saying Facebook here, but I am saying a deeper realm, I suppose, of hate speech. And essentially that is all about cyberbullying. Now, back in the day, back when I was younger, back when I was growing up, you had the internet just starting, and that was great. But with that, you realised that the internet was kind of just big enough and not huge. So you're going to have a thing called a cyber nanny. And that was somebody who was legitimately trying to stop any type of cyberbullying. And that was a great thing. But then what happened was the internet just exploded. It just went way too big. And with that, you couldn't actually just monitor everything. You couldn't see everything. So you needed to actually just say, oh, this is just out of control. We just need to watch young people and make sure that they're responsible enough online. But of course, this didn't happen. And in this particular study, the 23 respondents noted that this was not exactly what they wanted. And this was actually depressing them, in fact. Now, remember what I said at the start. Of the 23, 18 of them were young girls. A particular thing that they noticed is that they felt under pressure, that the aesthetics of being online, of looking a certain way, and they mentioned Instagram with regard to this, that it was pressurable for them, that they felt as if they had to live up to a certain image and so on. Now, that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing for us or for young people to actually feel as if they're under pressure in this regard. So this was their negative of social media. And I found that myself within my design and my creation on my running of youth cafes, and I found that internet was a huge problem. Although I was very proactive and I wanted young people to actually use the internet, so I allowed them to have computers, screens, and I allowed them to just mingle on them, but they were supervised. Now, in supervising somebody, you can't have the net nanny, and that's fair enough. So we had adults. We had adults that were there and subtly just keeping an eye on things, and also more so as well to try and educate people. And this is what I found was a very, very good thing. You could actually take time within the youth cafe, the time duration, to educate people on the safety and the wisdom. And trying to impart wisdom to young people, well, that's a gift, isn't it? So this was one of the things that I found was, well, it was good. You needed to have qualified staff, of course, to be able to impart this, to be able to use their communication skills with young people. And it's really refreshing when young people get it. And I can remember one particular time when literally I was supervising, and here was a young girl, and she literally got a face request right there and then off a stranger. So stranger danger is exactly what she quoted. So it just shows you. Now, that's my time in Youth Cafe, but what about my time where I got cyberbullied in my own realm, in my own business? Well, this was not at all seen. I did not foresee this. It's something that just came right out of the blue. I couldn't actually believe it. And it came from a female, and at that much older female. So I couldn't actually believe the comments. And it was not just one comment, it was regular comments, almost every evening. And this was going on and on and on. So I've been there, I know what it's like, and it can be actually very, very difficult to figure out why, who at times, and well, why me? And why my posts? My posts were all positive. I had people complaining to me about cyberbullying, about what's going on your page. Why is this person communicating this way? Why are they doing this? I don't know why they were doing it, but thankfully I solved it. I had a word with that person and they stopped. So there was no legal anything, thankfully. But that is not the first time, and that probably won't be the last. And it's a negative thing, but it's something we have to look out for. So even if you post positive things, these young people are telling us they can be depressed and can actually get into a fit of depression and go deeper into it, and it won't help in the long run. So that's it. Learn if we can and go forward with positivity. Shinee, as they say in the Irish language, that is it. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't already, please do. But until next time, have a wonderful day.